How is it going, everyone? This is Chris from Sega Nerds, and we are joined today from Eli with Piko Entertainment. How's it
Yeah,
going, Eli? I just
it,
messed it up, didn't I? God dang it.
are, are we live?
We're live. And so
Okay.
Eli and I were just having this conversation about the proper pronunciation, and I screwed it up. We went through it 2 times. So Eli, I'm sorry. What is the
Okay.
proper way to say your company?
Okay, it's we can go with Piko Interactive.
Thank you. Gosh, man. It's
Yeah,
confusing. It's
that's
confusing, but
okay.
it's not your fault. It's my fault. But to clarify, I originally said it the correct way, right?
Yeah, the original and correct way that it's Piko. You know how the symbol on our logo, it's a pie symbol, like the little face of the little symbol that we have. It's a pie symbol, and that's why you Pico or the pie company. But everybody says pronunciates it as Pico, so I sort of like adopted that. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go against everybody else, so Pico is fine.
It's almost like those video games that you played as a kid that you always mispronounce the name, but just for
Yeah.
whatever reason, everyone just thought it was that. Like Ease was one of those games on like Turbo Graphics 16. For me, I always called it Wise.
Oh,
I never
okay. I
knew.
always
I
call
never
it
knew.
wise too. Like,
Yeah, I never
I'm
knew.
just learning this right now.
And then
But,
another one was, do you ever play? I still don't really know the proper pronunciation, but Suikoden
so
on
okay,
PlayStation.
I always call it like, I mean, since I speak Spanish, I always say it like, is that if I'm just reading it in Spanish. So then.
Suikoden. See, and that's one of those things. Like everyone has a different way to say it, and
Yeah.
so Piko might be one of the same things, and
Yeah.
it'll be the good thing about it. It's always going to be a point of discussion between people when they say your company's name, right?
Yeah. True.
So
Yeah.
that'll be a good thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's been a while since we had you on the show. I think the last time we talked was when you guys were bringing over
Duke Nuke.
Duke Nukem, right?
Yeah, Duke Nukem.
How'd that end up going? Because I know a lot of people were excited about that. So how's
Yeah,
that
I mean,
process been?
we took pre-orders for like 3 weeks or so, and then after a couple of weeks that after I was on your show, we started like shipping out, and we still fulfill any order that comes in. We have still plenty in stock. So if you guys want Duke Nukem on Sega Genesis, go to our website.
That's right, and that you were never able to get it before. Only our friends down south in Brazil were able
Brazil,
to get it
yes,
before.
it was a Brazil
So
exclusive. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. So I think you were saying before, you're heading back to San Antonio here pretty soon. Is that right?
Yeah, I should be starting to move in a couple of 3 weeks or so from now. Yeah,
Oh,
3 weeks
man.
actually. Usually, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I would love to move back to San Antonio. I absolutely love that city. It's such a crazy town. I got in so much trouble and into a lot of just different crap when I was there, but I had so much fun. I love San Antonio.
Yeah, it's I think like it a lot. I too like it a lot, and especially because you know you got Austin there
Hmm.
nearby. And there's sort of like a gaming scene in there, and conventions, Classic Games Fest, Southwest, and then PAX South is in San Antonio. So
Yeah, that's what I'm
that's
gonna say. Pac South is there, so you guys, I mean, that'll be easy. You guys will be able to set like have a booth there and show off all your games and stuff. I would assume that would be a good opportunity for you guys, right?
yeah. It will be. It's one of the main reasons I decided to make the move. Well, we decided to make the move. Besides, we love the city.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So good luck on the move. I
Yeah.
know how
Thank
much
you.
of a pain moving can be. I've been in the military for a long time, and so like every 3 years we've had to like pack up and move, and sometimes it's like halfway across the world and all that kind of stuff. So I completely understand like some of the pain that you're going through right now of having to pack everything up. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I have the feeling like I don't know if whenever and I don't like roller coasters, but whenever you are on the line for the roller coaster, that feeling that you get nervous
Oh,
feeling, that's what I feel right now. Like, oh my god, 3 more weeks and I have to move.
oh my gosh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring you on the show because your company, you guys have been really kind of instrumental in all of the kind of Coleco Chameleon progress up to this point. I mean, I think you guys were really one of the only two major publishers that were planning on like bringing out games for the Coleco Chameleon, aside from CollectorVision.
Yeah.
And so there's been, I mean, I'm sure many of the people who are listening to this right now are familiar with what had kind of been going on with the Chameleon up to this point, but there's just been a lot of controversy. So what I'd like to do is kind of rewind a little bit, and I want you to take us back to the moment you first met Mike Kennedy, and then how you finally got an idea of like what this system, whether that was like the old retro VGS or the Chameleon. Take us back to that time, and kind of can you kind of catch us up from there?
Well, I mean, without going too much into detail, Mike, I met him. I think it was because of the Retro magazine, and you know, and it was related to the Retro magazine, and then from there, after he sort of like knew what we did, you know, called me up about the console, and you know, fast forward several months, and then they have the Indiegogo, and they approached us again to get a sort of like license any games, launch games for the Retro VGS, which they had picked up Super Noah's Ark, and then on that project as a Retro VGS, we were sort of left out at the last second. Our games weren't included, and I mean I was like, okay, I don't mind. I mean, that
Did he
project
give you
didn't go so well.
That's weird. Yeah, I didn't know that. So he had planned to include Super Noah's Ark, and did he give you any reason as to why that they decided not to include the games?
If I recall correctly, like he didn't give any upfront reason, and then after, you know, the project wasn't going anywhere, he contacted me saying like, oh, I'll add your games later. I was like, no, thanks. He mentioned something about our games being SNES mostly, and they didn't have any SNES support then, you know, for launch. So I you know, this is just me kind of like remembering that blurry memory of
Right.
that time. Like, but I remember it was after I had already said, yeah, no, thanks. We'll see later. But
Should have included Super Noah's Ark from the beginning, and then, you know, who knows what would have happened.
well,
But what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts when they launched the? Did you know much about the system before they launched the Indiegogo campaign?
I remember seeing a few forum posts about what was it going to be. They were looking for homebrew developers, and you know, and I'm not sure. I mean, I want to say I'm sure, but somehow I knew that they were gonna, I mean, use original classic games on their cards to get it on this console. So, you know, if you had an NES game, it could run on this console with their cards. So that's what I knew. And back then, whenever it was the Retro VGS, and it's sort of like was part of the Chameleon too. That same
That was with the
strategy.
like the FPGA. Allowed it to do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the beginning with the Indiegogo, they want to do everything FGPA, and then, you know, without going too much into detail again on what that does, it's you know, they were basically gonna hardware emulate a bunch of different platforms, and you will be able to release your classic homebrew or classic games through their cartridge design on their console. And like I said, it's sort of more that same idea was passed into the Chameleon project. However, they were somehow able to cut, you know, a lot of the costs, because I remember the Retro VGS was launched for like $400, you
It
know,
was
retail,
expensive. Yeah.
and then now for the Chameleon was announced for like 135 or 150 with a game and all.
So once the Indiegogo campaign failed, they took some time. They said they were going to take some time because it was a failure. Mike Kennedy posted, he's like, you know what, we can't cancel the campaign, we can't bring it down. We know it's not going to succeed, so everyone, don't contribute any money to it. We're going to go back. We're going to create a real prototype this time, because that was the real reason why they couldn't go to Kickstarter originally, because Kickstarter has that requirement. If you're going to bring a product to market on Kickstarter, that you need a prototype, and Indiegogo campaign did not have that same requirement, which is why they ended up going to Indiegogo. So they said, okay, we're going to go to Kickstarter and we will build a prototype. So how did you end up coming back on like with the Chameleon and the next iteration of this? Like, how did you end up getting involved in the next phase?
I was approached again by Mike on, he said, oh, we got a prototype already. We want to do it with Kickstarter. We cut out our cost, and we've got now, the name, the Coleco name. So those things, I think, were a little bit key for me. It was like, okay, they got a brand now, a known brand. Although, I mean, we all knew since then, day one, it was just a license. It wasn't really Coleco putting out the console. It was just a license VGS had acquired. And the other one was the price point wasn't that expensive anymore. I mean, it's $150 with a game and a controller, and you have the Retron 5 sold around that same price point. So
right,
it wasn't that bad anymore. It could succeed.
Yeah, that was actually when they announced that, I was still kind of I could say, like, I was still somewhat enamored with the idea. Like, I really wanted this system to succeed. I knew the Indiegogo campaign, when they had that idea and that business model, I knew that was not going to be able to succeed, just because the price point was just way too expensive. I mean, you could go out and buy a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, top of the line, next generation video game system for the same price. But when they came back out and they announced the Chameleon, I was intrigued because, okay, for one, the price point was where it needed to be. It was about $150, and like you said, you got a pack-in game, you got this, old system, and it was, for me, as a video, like a retro game collector, it piqued my interest. I will say that, and I wanted something like this to succeed. I really did. I was excited about it, and it was just a weird, kind of thing that, what kind of transpired. So
a cool gadget.
Yeah, and that's what it would be. I mean, and the one, I was just trying to figure out, like, kind of where it fit in. And I think it would just be kind of like a niche product that, you did, and, it would be for people who like to collect games and things like that. But I think it would be a fun, like, little side piece that you'd have in your collection. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I
so,
agree.
and so at that point, you guys ended up dedicating a lot more games to the Chameleon than just what you had originally said you were going to bring over to the Retro VGS, because you had Supernova's Arc. But what games had you they announced you guys bringing over to the Chameleon?
So basically, what I did, I mean, I knew from day one this was going to be a crowdfunded project. So you, as a developer or the publisher, I guess, or at least me, you can't really be that picky, or can't be really that mean. You can't really ask, oh, give me upfront payments and royalties upfront, and So what I did, I was like, you know what? Since the VGS, here's a list of games we own. Pick the ones you like. Add them on your project. And first time they only picked Super Noah's Arc, and then they didn't add it. Second time, I guess, because there were less. I mean, there was only Collector Vision and us that agreed. Last time it was NGD, the Neo Geo guys, and Watermelon and some other developers. This time you had less developers, so they needed to make up for the content. So I guess they picked up a lot more games from our library. you know, to make up for that. And like I said, I just left it open for them. Pick whatever game you like, and then we'll sign a contract or licensing contract, and that was it.
What was the time frame of that when you signed that licensing contract?
Well, we never actually signed a licensing contract. Not even the day before the Kickstarter was delayed. we, you know, I always waited for that contract to be signed, and I got to see one, but we wanted changes and all that, and we just never got to that point to sign anything. But when I told them, okay, here's our library, pick whatever you like. I think it was around December, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe early December, late November when it was that, when I gave them a list.
And so, I think it was around that same time when they announced that, okay, we're going to be going to the New York Toy Fair. That's going to be the date when the prototype is going to be shown for the very first time publicly. It's going to be there. We're going to be, having games playable on the system. And that got me really excited. I had never gone to the Toy Fair before.
Did you go though?
I did go. I did go.
Okay.
Yeah, I did go. And what's funny is that I had planned to go on Saturday, which was the same day you ended up going.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of bummed out about because I would have loved to have met you and kind of hung out. But we ended up the only day because we also wanted to meet Tom Kalinske was going to be there too. But the only day that he had available for us to sit down with him and talk to him was Sunday on Valentine's Day. And so we had to go, we delayed it a day. And so we missed you, which is a bummer. And so immediately okay, so let's fast forward to the Toy Fair in February, mid-February. When they were there, Mike Kennedy and his team posted a video which showed them. This is the video right now of them playing the system. But I think originally, and they also posted some photos too. Of the system, of the background, of the back of the system, and it didn't take people very long to start questioning this system. They said, okay, why are there Super Nintendo controllers, sticking out from the inside of the system? They looked at the back of the system and said, you know what? That looks like there might be a mini Super Nintendo stuck inside that thing. And so there's a lot of controversy surrounding it. And I know that you went there, you saw it, you played it. What were your thoughts on the system when you were there?
So, I to tell you the truth, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Before I got to their booth, I had already messages from people on Facebook saying, "Hey, it's a Super Nintendo Mini inside the console."
Oh man!
And honestly, I sort of like chuckled, when I read that. I was like, "What?" I mean, like that doesn't make any sense. And when I get there and I see what's happening and all that, I think to myself, okay, there might be a Super Nintendo Mini in there. There's a big possibility. But I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they just had a new board and use scrap parts, and I was told that actually, because Mike, mentioned, okay, people are talking about this, that it's a Super Nintendo Mini, but we're using only the connector. I was like, okay, well, why don't you let me talk to your engineer and so he can explain me what he did. And I know what's up. And this guy, that engineer, he tells me, well, we were a little bit backed up and they needed something for the toy fair to showcase. So what we did is we used scrap parts of Super Nintendo Mini that we had laying around, and it was the back connector and the pin connector for the cartridges. I was like, okay, so you're telling me 100% the truth. He was like, yeah. And I asked if I could see the inside, because when I test quick parenthesis, when I test our games before we ship them, I use a Super Nintendo Mini that doesn't have the top shell. It's just the bottom shell and the PCB. It's all out, right?
Right.
So I know how it looks from the inside, exactly how it looks. So I would have identified if they would allow me to see the inside.
Hmm.
But this guy tells me, no, you know what? I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'm not in New York. The system is already failing, because there was some bugs happening with the cartridge, which was a SD2 SNES flash card, and I don't want, it's first day, I don't want to risk it, and I sort of like, okay, I understand, okay, but I mentioned I'm not gonna be able to say that I saw it and I know that it's not a Super Nintendo Mini because I didn't see the insides.
Right.
So that's basically, that was I wanted to stay as neutral as possible and give him a professional courtesy and give him the benefit of the doubt. So that was my statement. I could not, how could you word it? I could not say it was a Super Nintendo Mini because I didn't see the insides,
Hmm.
but I could say that it was working because I saw it working, right?
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
I gotta hand it to you because that's I think I don't know when you posted it. Yeah, it was the day after
yeah,
you saw it. You wrote a blog post on the Pico site, right?
yeah, and I I don't know if it was Sunday night or a Monday when I wrote that post, but Saturday night, I was already reading forum posts where people were like, "Well, Pico knows Super Nintendo, so they should know better that this was a Super Nintendo Mini."
Mm.
And I understand people, where they're coming from, but people got to understand that I'm representing a company. I'm not just gonna be, you know, yelling and sending accusations. Because what if I'm wrong? What if they did had a
Right.
board? I could get sued for defamation or for slandering or
Hmm.
something like that. So I had to be professional. Um, but I really want to address, you know, this before it derailed into something worse, and that's why I wrote that blog post on the blog, to make sure people understand our position and our statement, our official statement about the whole thing when for the toy show.
Yeah, I love just the openness that you had in your blog post and saying like, you know what, like I asked to see it several times and they gave me several different reasons why they couldn't do it, and all that. I appreciated your honesty in that, and
Yeah. Well, I think I think the community and your the audience you're pitching this product or any product to you know
mhm.
deserve to know what's going on, especially because you're doing a crowdfunding project. If back in the day, people companies will put PCs instead of a PlayStation 1, well, they're self-funding it, and it was the 80s and 90s. They use different marketing strategies, but now with the internet, you gotta be careful. You gotta be more truthful. You gotta be real and all that when it comes to all this. Whenever you're gonna put out a product out there, and again, especially when it's gonna be crowdfunded.
Absolutely. And so fast forward a couple weeks after the toy fair, they said that they were supposed to launch the Kickstarter. I think it was February 26th, something around there.
Yeah.
Uh, but there was already rumblings that I saw online. They were like, "There's no way this Kickstarter is going to go it's going to launch because Retro VGS and Mike Kennedy, they had been very quiet. You would think that they would be promoting it and say, and all that stuff, but on social media there was nothing there. And then
Yeah.
lo and behold, the day of the Kickstarter that was supposed to launch, they announced that they're delaying the Kickstarter, and there's really no time frame of when they're going to be coming back.
Yeah.
So did Mike kind of reach out to you and say beforehand, hey, just let you know, we're not going to be doing the Kickstarter right now, or did you find that information out when everyone else did?
No, no, no. I knew hours before they posted that they were gonna go for the Kickstarter, and I mean I was told they were gonna, and they sort of like implied that on their statement that it was going to be so self-funded, and then they mentioned something about like targeting retailers and whatnot. But yeah, I was told hours before that. However, a day, the night before. Okay, no. I'm sorry. The day before, we had some sort of trouble that I think had to do with uh, with the whole cancellation of the Kickstarter. The other developer wasn't really happy about some stuff and wanted to pull out. And then for me to give in to the other developers' demand, I had my own demands, which were more involved into fixing a lot of the things that I thought were wrong with what VGS was doing. Like being more, having a community manager that addresses any sort of questions,
Mhm.
and showing the prototype video even before the Kickstarter, and showing the Toy Fair prototype, the insights in a video and stuff like that. Some requirements that I thought they were gonna be of a benefit to make everything, much better and
Yeah, and you're
fix
talking about the other developer. You're talking about Collector Vision, right?
collector vision. Yes.
Yeah. So the day before the Kickstarter were supposed to launch, they pulled out
Yeah.
support, and
Yeah.
and I
And
go.
Lester, John, Gamester 81 addresses that on a video he released
Mhm.
today. I think today. And honestly, if they would have never done that, that Kickstarter probably had launched with those pictures that were released at. So in a way, even though I wasn't happy that the what happened there, that they wanted to pull out because they wanted something that extra, or you could say that. I'm happy that it happened because it sort of like saved
Mhm.
both of us from a
Right.
lot of problems.
What it sounded like, from what John Les, because I watched his video today, he said that kind of like you. I mean, they had all the legal paperwork sitting there, and he was waiting. He was waiting to receive the paperwork from Mike Kennedy to be able to sign it and say, and get all that to say this is the game we're going to bring, and these are the terms of the agreement, all that stuff. He never received
Well,
that, and then right towards the end and he didn't go into detail as to what it was, but he said that Mike Kennedy changed the terms of the agreement, which is one of the reasons why he decided to pull out.
uh, I already addressed this publicly. I guess I can mention it. Mainly because I think they really wanted to get the packing game, and
Mm-hmm.
since they before, a couple of days or a day before that, that day when they pull out, uh Mike decided for us to get the packing game because we already had the games done. They didn't really like that,
Mm.
so they were like, well, if we don't get the packing game, we're out. And I was willing, to give in our spot, um if those requirements from Mike were were met for us. And I already, like I said, I already mentioned publicly, it was about showing the current prototype, and then it must have at least two different platforms playing in a video without cuts. Delay the Kickstarter if this wasn't going to be able to be done. Show the Toy Fair prototype. Um, Hire a community manager. Make a voting board with all the third parties involved, and hire a third party consultant that will be able to be like a deciding vote for him. Because the way I see it is BGS was making decisions that was affecting us,
Mm-hmm.
Coleco,
Right.
Collector Vision, and we had no saying on it. So we sort of you know I really wanted to have a say on something that was going to affect us or our image or our game at least. So I thought
Yeah.
a voting board would be very beneficial to the project because you'll hear everybody's concerns and opinions, and then a third party consultant will be able to see it from outside. Well, this is my opinion out of the whole situation. And another thing that it was I what else? So I mean, were requirements to be and to give in that packing game and to stay on the product and the project were the things that I thought it could fix at least a little bit of what was
Mhm.
going on already.
Right. So you're saying that you were willing to give CollectorVision the pack-in game again if Mike Kennedy met those demands that you had wanted to
Yeah.
basically. Okay, so you're going to give that back. Okay, what was the pack-in game from you guys that was supposed to be?
And it was decided a day before that. It was just a multi-card, a bunch of like a 5 different Super Nintendo games.
Was
That
that
was
the what was played at the
No, that wasn't. The what was played at the Toy Fair was a multi-card we did for Hyperkin, for to be a packing game on the Retron 5, but that never came into fruition. So I had that board, and as I mentioned online, I wanted to pitch uh, adding cards to subscription boxes from Nerdblock and Loot Crate, and I took those that one and then an NES one and to give us the samples, but I let VGS use the Super Nintendo one to be able to fix the other. Oh well, to at least showcase something because the flash card they had it was failing.
Right. I do want to add that at the Toy Fair,
Hmm.
I played Legend
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for over an hour, and I made it to the end boss on one continue,
Oh wow.
and nearly beat him. So I just want to add that everyone, Mike Kennedy, if you're out there, he was there, and he can corroborate that story. I don't know how much his word is trustworthy these days, but he was there. He saw it. I played Legend for quite a long time. That is a really good game. I really like that
Yeah,
game.
it's a good beat 'em up. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know that this is just, you know what, and looking at this thing, this to me is one of the just most intriguing stories that we've had in the video game industry in a very, very long time. To me, it is. I mean, there's just so much twists and turns and like drama left and right. I can't help but just be compelled with this whole Coleco Chameleon. I can't help but
Yeah,
I
and
love it.
sort of like reminds me of, I don't know if you were aware back in the early 2000 about the Bob's game thing.
No,
It was like a one guy from Italy wanted to do his own game for Game Boy Advance, and then it was called Bob's Game, and then he sort of like got licensing from Nintendo, and then it was revoked, and he went into a hunger strike or something like that. It was just like a drama, I don't know if it was as big as this whole thing, because this issue, this situation has a lot of different parties involved, but but that one is sort of like similar. It just reminds me of that Bob's game
Hmm.
thing. Yeah.
And so, okay, so after, or I guess it was around the same time that they had announced that, okay, they're going to be delaying the Kickstarter. They went it, Mike. I assume it was Mike that who's heading up the Kickstarter or the Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Posted a bunch of photos of this supposedly new prototype of the Coleco Chameleon, which you're seeing right now. It had a semi-transparent shell on top, which you could see a board. What
Yeah.
we're not looking at now, they deleted one of the images, but it was a top-down view, which showed the board.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long, and I have to hand it to whoever found it out. I mean, these people out there on the internet, you cannot trick the internet. Do not
No.
try to do it, because they will find out the truth, and
Yeah.
they will call you out on it. So what they ended up doing is someone discovered very quickly that, you know what, this board, it's actually a video capture card
Yeah.
that you just put in there, and there is nothing in that thing. It's just a shell with some USB ports and everything else. So when you
LED
saw
light.
that, what was your reaction when you saw that at that point?
Well, I do want to mention that the Friday, the day of the Kickstarter when it was delayed, after speaking with Mike and all that, and then
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to mention I was on the Retro Gaming Roundup podcast. I got tipped a little bit of information from an industry friend that told me that there might be a patent out there that Mike, if he does this thing and if this thing is real, he might be infringing on. So and that it was, I was like, you know what, I'm done. And so I
Oh man.
sent, or that, and I hadn't mentioned this on the other podcast. I sent an email saying, you know what, Mike, I'm sorry, we're just gonna not gonna be, we're gonna look to bundle our games on another device. There are plenty clone consoles for Super Nintendo. So for now, for this year, we're gonna pass. Good luck, and maybe 2017 next year we'll make a game or something if this comes out. So then I didn't pay much attention to whatever I saw. They posted the pics of the prototype. I was like, okay, well they have a prototype. I didn't, I was so delayed on orders on the website and work, so I didn't really pay much attention of what was going on in the forums and people saying, that doesn't really look like a prototype. So, um, what was it? I mean, the day that they discovered the DVR board, I was told by Carl Williams from Retro Gaming Magazine, hey, does it look familiar? I'm like, I didn't pay attention even until later that night, like at 1 a.m. I was like, why? Well, what did he send? And I saw everything, and I just freaked out. I was like, oh
Oh
my god,
God.
that's 1-to-1. That's the same thing.
So you could tell just by looking at the board that something fishy was going on.
Well, like I said, when I saw the first photos, I
Oh,
didn't
I
think
see.
of
Okay.
much. So I didn't really pay. I mean, I'm not a hardware engineer, so they could have fooled me saying, "Oh, this is a prototype."
I had no idea what I was looking at when I saw it. I was like, oh, there it is. It's there's the internal boards. Good job.
Yeah,
That's the prototype. So they would have
yeah,
fooled me had it not been for whatever super smart internet forum guy was out there to figure that out. I'm glad he did.
yeah. So when I saw that, I just felt so bad and so like terrible. Was this is horrible. Can't believe they did this,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not worth it anymore to do anything. I did talk to Mike the next day, and I realized, well, he said a couple of things that made me realize that whatever I had talked to his hardware guy was complete, 100% lies. And then I
Hmm.
said, oh, I guess that Super Nintendo, I mean, the toy for that was a Super Nintendo after all. And after that, I was like, yeah, I'm done. This
What
is
was his reaction when you said that? What did he say?
when I said what to Mike.
To, that was in fact a Super Nintendo
Oh
at the time.
well, I told him. I mean, when I talked to Mike, he just said, I don't know what to say. That thing looks. I mean, I'm seeing it, and I saw the board. So Mike supposedly had never
So
actually seen it
Mike's
playing.
saying that he basically like trusted his hardware guy to bring it, and so he's just basically trying to say that like I didn't know what was in there and that kind of thing. Is that what he was basically trying to say?
Yeah, yeah, that was it.
Mhm.
And I told him like, well, now that he mentioned, I mean, this other guy had mentioned that he worked for a company and his employer was hired by Mike and all that. And when I mentioned that to Mike, he was like, no, that's not real. That's all lies. That's when I realized, oh my god, there was a Super Nintendo Mini in there. I mean, there was too many signs, and
Mhm.
the only thing, the little string that was holding was just the benefit of the doubt. So
Yeah.
with after knowing that you've been lied to in other things, that string is cut out. So that thing was a Super Nintendo Mini.
What was Mike's reaction, or what did he say to you when you said, okay, we're pulling out, we're done, we're not going to continue this?
Well, when I had initially said that on Friday, I mean, I still say, oh, we'll come back. I mean, if this goes out as a retail product, we'll make a game if it's successful. So I guess he didn't think of much. He just said, okay, well, talk to you later. Then I didn't even say, well, we're done.
Mhm.
It was sort of like implied.
Right.
you know, I didn't have to say we're gonna pull out outright. Not even in the future. I mean, after seeing that joke of a prototype they did with the DVR, it was we're never gonna touch that project again.
My God. Um, so this is, I don't know. This has been a crazy thing. So I mean, I mean, you're a business owner. I mean, you're running your own company. You know,
Yeah.
at some point, you got to kind of like, I guess you got to weigh the benefits and and the negatives of being attached to a product that is getting so much negative reaction, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
and
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
and so, at what point are you like looking at this and be like, you know what, we can't be associated with something like this anymore because there's just so much bad stuff that we're going to be lumped in with this, and then we're going to be getting some of the blame from the people out there.
Well, all this time, I was told 20 times, a day that there was a prototype, and that there was a large company that Mike had hired working on this. So just because this was what I thought it was, I mean, what I was, yeah, what I thought it was the truth, you think, okay, well, there's all these people saying this and that, negative stuff, but there's a large company behind this. They have a prototype. Whenever they show the video of the prototype, everything should stabilize. But once you see that there's no prototype at all, I mean, what can you do? You're like, well, okay, I guess you know there's no point of being stuck to this project, because there's no way you could prove wrong, or there's no way you can take away the negativity, uh, because there's no prototype, there's no console, there's nothing.
Mm-hmm. And so, I'm sure you probably have been watching the Pat DNA's Punk videos. They've been very critical of the retro VGS, of the Coleco Chameleon throughout this whole time, and I think they've done a really good job of just covering the whole kind of the whole story throughout several different podcasts and YouTube videos.
Hmm.
But his latest video was published earlier this week, and he basically said, like, hey, anyone that was associated with the Coleco Chameleon, or anyone who promoted it, should apologize to the community for supporting basically a fraudulent product that was aimed at taking money away and stealing money from people and things like that.
Hmm.
What was your reaction as someone who kind of was attached to this product? What was your reaction kind of when you saw something like that in such a public figure in kind of the video game industry like that?
I could tell you two things. First of all, I didn't really feel that was coming towards us first,
Mm-hmm.
because I made sure I never promoted the
Right.
Chameleon. I made sure this was whole a complete licensing deal. We're attached in a way that they're licensing games. That's it. So I didn't promote it. And the other thing is that since the new Coleco Chameleon, since day one of the Coleco Chameleon, the toy fair, I made sure I spoke, even though I was under quote unquote NDA, although everything was fake. Uh, I make sure you gotta be smart and stuff in the gaming industry. It's a big cutthroat industry. They could set you traps and all that. So I made sure I had alibis,
Mm-hmm.
important and key alibis through all this. So I made sure to share information to people that would, if something happened, if something one day VGS says, you know what, Pico was the one that, or Pico was the one that was doing the VGS. We were just the front man. They're the one, if they want to blame us somehow. I've been speaking with these people and they've told them all the truth. And, I have written proof and all that from where I was getting all this information, and they were getting it at certain times, I can prove. So I had shared information with Pat and SNES Punk, with other people, and from a target age, that I thought it was key people that in any case something really bad went wrong, they will be able to come out and say, yeah, Pico told us this way before, so we knew,
Hmm.
or we know, you know, at least I had some alibis to make my case. So
Smart
I
move.
do, yeah, I mean, he did say that, and I remember when I told him a little bit of information, Pat say, "Well, you'll be fine." That was one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
And then he asked me after the whole DVR, "Are you still stating?" Because all this time, I'm being told you're gonna get a prototype, a test unit. By the Kickstarter, like either before or a little bit after, you're gonna get a test unit. So whenever the whole DVR stuff happened, although I had already said, we're out, I'm still, expecting either to see a prototype, and I've been told I was gonna get a test unit. So I'm pretty, I understand that there's something out there working. So I had told Pat, I'm supposed to receive a test unit soon, and he asked me, "Are you still by your statement that there is a prototype working?" I was like, "Nah," and I told him, "Nah, this project is dead, man."
Mm.
and and he told me, "You've been had," and that really that really made me laugh, actually. So whenever he said that, I mean, I didn't promote this thing. I wasn't I wasn't as much as dark as anybody else as in the community when pictures. I mean, I knew like an hour or 2 hours before, oh, pictures are coming up, but I didn't really saw anything, until they were
Mhm.
posted. So I didn't feel like I was part of that. I didn't feel I had a good conscience throughout
Right.
this project, because I was trying to stood what it was right with the community, and try to give the community as much as insight as possible since day one. I never defended the console. We always stay neutral, and like I said, we never promoted it. So uh, I didn't feel like it was directed at us.
Good, good. Yeah. And honestly, like I don't think you guys should be getting any sort of negativity like pointed your way, because like what we've talked about earlier, you've been incredibly upfront, more so than any sort of developer or publisher typically is about like a new console product where they're going to be bringing games to. And so just from someone kind of outside that whole area, just reading that stuff, I think it was really interesting to read some of that. And so no, I think you did a really good job of showing some sort of impartiality, and just making sure that you weren't lumped into that whole any sort of lies or anything like that. I think you did a good job with that. But John Lester, who we talked about earlier, from CollectorVision, who was going to be bringing Sydney Hunter to
Yeah.
that. Apparently, he's taken issue with what Pat has been saying, and he felt that it was kind of an affront to him, because I think he went a little bit beyond some of the things that you did with the Kickstarter, the Indiegogo, and just he had. Because I mean, John Lester, he has, in addition to co-owning CollectorVision, he has the Gamester 81 YouTube channel, which is quite a popular. He's got almost 100,000 YouTube subscribers, and so he's had Mike Kennedy on, and so some people thought that he advertised and pushed this product, and when Pat spoke about that, I think he took issue to that. So did you get a chance to see this video earlier today?
I did. I saw both videos. I mean, what I could say is, I mean, there's no other way to fix it than just apologize. We all are human.
Mm-hmm.
You get excited whenever you're making classic video games, and they come and tell you, "Oh, you can sell 2,000 cartridges instead of 200. You wanna give me your soul?" Well, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand, partly, Gamester, and I mean, if those interviews were done that look like an advertisement, it's I mean, it's as easy as apologizing, count your losses, and move on. If somebody else calls you out, I mean, if they have a point, there's nothing wrong to accepting. You know what, you're right. I don't have an argument. I messed up or whatever. Whatever you feel, and apologize and move on. And you're gonna waste more time trying to win your argument, than moving on and working on other projects, or making new videos, or making new games, or whatnot. So this project for me, and I guess for everybody else, is dead. There's no point of concentrating and keeping it alive, so much that it's taking away your time, and money, and I'd say just move on, and 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 work on other positive stuff, and that's it.
Absolutely. So, what do you think's going to happen with this thing? Do you think it's going to come back? Do you like you said it's dead, but do you think this is the end we're going to see of the Coleco Chameleon?
Well, we're still waiting for that 7-day inspection from Coleco.
Right. Okay. So we should talk about that too. So can you kind of talk to us about what Coleco has said?
Well, they made a statement that they were going to send a third party engineer to inspect what VGS has done. If they find out that, if they somehow have an actual prototype working with gameplay, I suppose they could move on. They could move forward with the project, but I doubt that. You know, they would have already shown it on those pictures. So if I suppose Coleco will move on, with other projects if VGS can't really prove they have an actual working prototype to the engineers. And I don't know. I mean, Coleco seems to be really wanting to bring back the brand and start getting involved with new products. You know, I was told in the toy fair about the new mini arcades over there. I mean, I think that was why they were there to promote those. And I read online that too. So, I mean, there's 100 different other projects that could be done. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it will be smart to to really try this one to work if it's already been proven to be a failure a couple of times.
Especially as like Coleco, if they're trying to reinvigorize this brand, they they don't want to be associated with something that is as negative as something like the chameleon, right?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. But I mean, you guys, like you said, you're looking towards the future. You're not, just focused on the chameleon and what might have happened or what could possibly happen. So, what are some things that you guys have lined up? Because I think a few weeks, maybe a month or so ago, you posted a blog post on your website showing like, hey, this is what we got planned out for 2016. So, can you talk to us about what you guys have lined up for the rest of the year?
Well, hopefully we can fit it all in this year. But there's just so many days in the 1 year.
Hmm.
But I really want to we really want to get done Gene Power, and we want to Kickstarter. We want to do it on a crowdfunding website and use that as a marketing outlet, to reach more people. Because well, we have so small reach, and we are trying. I don't know if this has been tried before, but we're trying to get this game in every, or at least not every, but every, well, major's classic gaming platform. So Gene Power on NES, which is an all original port that we done, from scratch. Super Nintendo, a rework of the original Super Nintendo game that was not very well polished, so we've redone it. Sega Genesis, which was on release. Uh, TurboGrafx, which was just Japan exclusive. Amiga CD32, which was only for the Amiga 500, so we want to do it on the CD32, and maybe Jaguar. And we know we want to add some stretch goals, maybe Dreamcast or other classic platforms.
Nice.
I don't know if that's been done before. One game in all major platforms, but that's why we want to try to go to Kickstarter and get even. I mean, and one cool thing about the toy fair is that we went is that I met Chris Cordillo from Coleco, and he knows about toy manufacturing, action figures. So thanks to that, we might be able to make a Jim Power action figure to come on bundling on a special edition Jim Power card. So who knows? That would be pretty cool.
That would be
Although,
pretty awesome.
yeah,
I didn't know, but because the Super Nintendo game did release in the States, right?
yeah, yeah,
But that was the only version that released here.
yeah. The only version that was released was the Super Nintendo, but although, like I said, it wasn't really polished, and besides that, it had this 3D parallax effect that you supposedly will see it in 3D the game when you use some glasses that came with the game, and it's just it makes the game nauseating. You'll vomit the first 2 minutes you play the game. Uh, but we fixed that now, and we paused the game and made it a little bit easier to finish it up and enjoy it.
You got to get those Master System 3D glasses.
I don't know. I never seen those.
They had them back in the day. The Sega Master System had their own 3D glasses, which I've never used them, but I've heard they're pretty good.
What kind of 3D was it? Was it the magenta and cyan, or was it the other one?
I don't think it was magenta and cyan. No,
Okay,
they were all black.
Okay, then I think it's the same as the Jim Power ones, because I know for sure the the original Jim Power Super Nintendo one had some weird 3D effect. It wasn't just the original magenta and cyan.
I don't know. But no, that's awesome. No, I think that's an interesting idea. And yeah, anytime anyone says, "Hey, we're gonna look to port this game to the Dreamcast," it always piques my interest because I just love the fact that there's still more games coming to the Dreamcast. And
yeah,
and I love the stuff that you guys are doing out there. Honestly, just being able to bring games that were just never released, in the United States, and bringing them out on the actual carts and on the systems. Yeah, we could always just go and download a ROM and play it on our PC, but there's something to be said about playing it on the original hardware, how it was originally supposed to be played, and getting a case, instruction manual, and that's all the things that you guys offer out there. And I think that is really cool. And for the purists out there, like myself, that is an important thing, and I think that's awesome what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. And we're working our best to bring these projects out. I personally enjoy assembling cartridge every day. I mean, it's something that I can't believe I'm working on this. It's my actually full-time job, making Super Nintendo games or Genesis cartridges. So we really enjoy what we do, and we do it with passion and with love, and we try to do it as best as possible and bring the best service to the community and the best transparency when it comes to projects like the Chameleon. And yeah, that's it.
I bet it's got to be kind of crazy to know that you kind of sometimes like own the rights to some of these games too, that you may have played, or something like that. That must be a pretty crazy feeling as well.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just like collecting game cartridges. I get excited. Oh, we just acquired this license. Oh my god! so yeah, it's fun. It's a good thing.
So Water Margin, that's a game that you guys had just. That's a newer game that you are just had available this year, right?
Yeah, it was released a month or so before Duke Nukem, actually. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one. I think I'm gonna have to put an order in for that. That's awesome.
Right.
I was planning on getting that because that was supposed to come over to the Chameleon, right?
They
announced it.
They announced it, and then they said no, and the reason I think they said no is because they didn't really work on they didn't have anything, but supposedly they didn't work on a Genesis FGPA or FPGA.
They didn't have the Genesis FPGA as of yet, right?
No, well, they don't have anything as of yet, but
right. But according to them,
yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, that's the thing. I was like, you know what? Okay, Water Margin. That was an awesome game. I'm going to wait for that, and that was one of the games I had planned on getting for the Chameleon. So obviously, since that's not going to happen now, I'm going to have
to
buy
your
that.
Genesis on, man.
That's right. Genesis does. So yeah, you could get it right now for $39.99 for the cart only, or only $10 extra to complete in box with the.
And I shouldn't be telling you all this, but I should be setting up a sale soon because we're moving, right? So we gotta celebrate that.
Yeah.
With a sale. So stay tuned for a flash sale one of these days.
Nice. Yeah, let us know. We'll be sure to promote that too.
Yeah, I'll send a newsletter, email. So make sure to sign up so you could get it at the same time. And I'll send whatever, like 100% discount or
I
something
will
like
be
that.
all over that. So where can our listeners find out more about the website and your social media and all that kind of stuff?
So just go to picointeractive.com. That's Piko interactive.com. And if you're interested in buying games, go to the store section. Or reading up of our projects, go to the blog section. On Facebook, as Piko Interactive. Twitter, Piko Interactive. YouTube, Piko Interactive.
Piko
So
Interactive. Awesome.
yeah.
So Eli, thanks for coming on the show. Is there
Hey,
anything
thank you,
else that
Chris.
you want to say before we end the show or anything like that?
No, I mean, thank you for having me, and thank you for the community for the work you've done on this project and being on debunking any problems
Mhm.
and lies, and I hope they keep at it for 20 more years. That means I'll have a job for 20 more years.
Absolutely. So good luck on your move. And
Thank you.
hopefully I'll
Appreciate
be
it.
able to come down to one of those PAX South one of these days and we can finally hang out and maybe have a beer together or something like that.
Yeah. Just reach out to me. You know where to find me.
Absolutely.
Cool, man.
Cool. So
All right,
thanks again,
Chris.
Eli. And we are out. So take it easy, everybody.
All right. Goodbye, guys. And
Yep.
thank you, Chris. Take care.
Right.
Bye.